This is Maryann Martindale from the Alliance for a Better Utah, and welcome to the Better Utah Beat. We haven't always been the United States of America. In fact, we used to be these United States of America. Did you catch the difference? It's the difference between plural and singular usage. The first use relies on the singular the, while the second use relies on the plural these. It's only a slight change in language, but the impact of what it means to be an American today is enormous. But why did it change? It took a national crisis to change the way Americans speak about their country. Most historians point to the Civil War as being the definitive moment for this change in how we talk about ourselves. Before the Civil War, we were still just a collection of states that weren't quite aware of how they related to each other. The Declaration of Independence was penned only 90 years earlier, and it was only 75 years earlier that the Constitution was ratified by the 13 colonies. It is worth noting that our first attempt at a constitution, the Articles of Confederation, didn't work out so well. It created a federation of states that was too loosely connected. There just wasn't enough stability to ensure prosperous economies or to protect the young country from foreign invaders. The colonists realized that they were going to need a stronger central government if their grand experiment was going to be successful. They realized they needed to start thinking about themselves as Americans, not just Virginians or Carolinians. But states' rights are back on the agenda in a big way in Utah's legislature. This year, Utah is asserting its supremacy over federal law by hearing a bill titled Second Amendment Preservation Act that would strike down federal gun laws in the state of Utah and empower Utah police to arrest federal officers if they enforce federal gun laws. The act would totally flout the Constitution's Supremacy Clause and thus the Constitution itself. But the bill is worrying for the way it participates in the same cultural forces that made possible the Civil War, namely, it is willing to forego the cooperative element of the United States for a go-it-alone, Articles of Confederation-style approach that didn't work the first time around. It might be guns this year, but Utah's obsession with state supremacy extends to other issues as well. The unconstitutional and likely litigiously expensive decision to take control of federal lands in Utah is just as nutty as the gun bill. The state believes that it should have control over all of the lands within our borders, ignoring that there is nothing about Canyonlands, the Wasatch National Forest, Arches, or Goblin Valley that make it uniquely the property of Utahns. Indeed, the places belong to all Americans as part of our national heritage. As more and more emotionally charged issues occupy our political attention, it is important to remember that the identity that binds us is not our Utahness, but rather our Americanness. We are Utahns and Americans. And if this truly great experiment is going to continue to work, we must remember how those two identities are so closely related. We don't always get things right the first time in America. Our history is one of compromise, evolution, trying things out, finding they don't work, and trying something else. We are a nation of risk-takers and entrepreneurs. We are a nation of Utahns and Texans and Californians. But we're also a nation of Americans. The failed Articles of Confederation taught us that, but it took the Civil War to remind us. We must remember our histories because we cannot afford to repeat them. As Utahns and Americans, we are all in this together. Until next week, this is Maryann Martindale with the Alliance for a Better Utah with this week's edition of the Better Utah Beat. Have a great week, and remember, together we can make a better Utah. For more information, visit betterutah.org.